The wedding ring sat on our bathroom counter like an accusation. Again. Third time this week, fourth this month. Mara claimed it got in the way at work, but I'd started keeping count. 14 years of marriage, and suddenly gold became her kryptonite. I'm Reid Trenner, 42 years old, home inspector by trade. I spend my days crawling through basements and attics, finding problems other people missed. Turns out those skills transfer pretty well to marriage. The roses cost me $43 at Morrison's florist. Red ones, because Mara always said red meant passion. I figured showing up at her marketing firm unannounced would either reignite something or confirm what I already suspected. Either way, I'd have my answer. Trenner Marketing Solutions occupied the third floor of a glass building downtown. I'd helped Mara celebrate when she landed the creative director position 18 months ago. Funny thing was, I'd never actually seen her office. The elevator doors opened to reveal an open-plan workspace buzzing with activity. Young professionals hunched over laptops, their conversations a mixture of marketing jargon and office gossip. I approached the reception desk, roses in hand. I'm looking for Mara Trenner, I told the receptionist, a 20-something with purple hair and multiple ear piercings. She glanced at the flowers, then back at me. And you are? Her husband. The typing sounds around us seemed to quiet. Purple hair's eyes widened slightly. Oh, I didn't know Mara was married. Let me call her. Didn't know she was married. That phrase hit me like a punch to the chest, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of dealing with homeowners trying to hide structural damage had taught me to control my reactions. Reid? Mara's voice carried across the office. She approached from a corner desk, her professional smile not quite reaching her eyes. What are you doing here? Before I could answer, a woman from the neighboring cubicle looked up. Who are you here for? She asked, clearly not recognizing me. I'm Mara's husband, I repeated, watching the woman's face register genuine surprise. Husband? Mara, I had no idea you were married. The woman's excitement felt forced, like she was overcompensating for an awkward moment. I glanced at Mara's desk. Clean, organized, professional. Photos of her parents, her college friends, even her cat from childhood. But no wedding pictures. No photos of us together. Nothing that indicated she had a life outside this office. These are beautiful, Mara said, taking the roses. Her voice carried a strange tension. Thank you. Anniversary's next week, I said loud enough for her coworkers to hear. 14 years. Another woman joined our growing audience. 14 years? Wow, Mara, you've kept him well hidden. Mara's laugh sounded brittle. Reid's very private. He doesn't like social media or office functions. That was news to me. I'd never been invited to any office functions. Well, it's nice to finally meet the mysterious husband, said a man approaching from the conference room. Tall, athletic build, expensive suit. He extended his hand. Silas Ventar, creative director. I shook his hand, noting how his other hand settled on Mara's lower back. Just for a moment, but long enough. The gesture was too familiar, too comfortable, like muscle memory. Reid works in home inspection, Mara said quickly. Very different worlds. Absolutely, Silas agreed, his hand still making contact with my wife. We're all about creativity here, building brands, crafting narratives. I build trust, I replied, looking directly at him. I find problems other people miss. Something flickered in Silas's eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or concern. Well, Mara said, stepping slightly away from Silas. I should get these in water. Reid, walk me to the break room? The break room was empty. Sterile white walls, and the lingering smell of microwaved lunches. Mara set the roses on the counter and turned to face me. Why are you really here? Her professional mask had slipped, revealing something I hadn't seen in months. Panic. Wanted to see where my wife spends her days, I said. Meet the famous colleagues I hear so much about. You never expressed interest before. Maybe I should have. I leaned against the counter. Interesting that none of them knew you were married. I keep my personal life separate from work. You know that. Do I? I studied her face, looking for tells. After 14 years, I knew them all. The way her left eye twitched when she was lying. How she touched her collarbone when nervous. Both happening now. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've erased me from your professional life entirely. That's ridiculous. Is it? No photos, Mara, not one. Your desk looks like it belongs to a single woman. She crossed her arms, defensive. And I don't need to display my personal life for everyone to see. But you display everything else. Your parents, your college friends, even Mr. Whiskers from when you were 12, just not your husband of 14 years. The silence stretched between us. In the distance, I could hear office chatter, phones ringing, the normal sounds of people working, but in this break room, the air felt thick with unspoken truths. "I think you should go," Mara said finally. "I think you're right." I pushed off from the counter. "But Mara, next time you decide to take off your wedding ring because it gets in the way, maybe consider what else might be getting in the way." I left her standing there with $43 worth of roses and walked back through the office. The conversations had resumed, but I caught glances, whispered exchanges. Mara's coworkers were processing what they'd witnessed, trying to reconcile the woman they knew with the married woman they'd just met. As I waited for the elevator, I pulled out my phone and opened LinkedIn. Mara's professional profile loaded quickly. Creative Director at Trenner Marketing Solutions. Education, experience, skills, and under relationship status, blank. The elevator arrived and I stepped inside. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Silas Venter watching me from across the office. His expression was unreadable, but his body language spoke volumes. He looked like a man who just realized he had a problem. That made two of us. The drive home took 23 minutes. Plenty of time to think. Mara's reaction had confirmed what I'd suspected, but seeing it firsthand hit differently. The complete erasure of our marriage from her professional life wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, calculated, purposeful. I'd spent years inspecting houses, learning to spot the subtle signs of structural damage. Hairline cracks that indicated foundation problems, water stains that revealed hidden leaks, small details that pointed to bigger issues. My marriage had hairline cracks everywhere. That evening, Mara came home 2 hours later than usual. She found me in the kitchen, reviewing inspection reports for tomorrow's job. "We need to talk about today," she said, setting her purse on the counter. "Do we?" "You embarrassed me, Reid. Showing up unannounced, making a scene." "Making a scene?" I looked up from my paperwork. "I brought my wife flowers. Since when is that embarrassing?" "You know what I mean." "Actually, I don't. Explain it to me." She poured herself a glass of wine, her movement sharp and agitated. "My coworkers don't need to know every detail of my personal life." "But they know about your parents, your college roommate, your childhood pets. They just don't know about your husband. That's different." "How?" "It just is." I set down my pen and gave her my full attention. "Mara, I've been thinking about this all afternoon. When was the last time you wore your wedding ring to work?" "I told you, it gets in the way." "Of what, exactly?" "You're a creative director, not a surgeon. What could your ring possibly interfere with?" She took a long sip of wine. "You wouldn't understand. It's a professional thing. Try me. In my industry, image matters. People make assumptions about married women. They think we're less committed, less available for travel or long hours. So you pretend to be single. I maintain professional boundaries. By lying about your marital status. By focusing on my career." I studied her face, noting the defensive posture, the way she avoided direct eye contact. Every instinct I'd developed over years of finding hidden problems was screaming at me. "Mara, are you having an affair?" The question hung in the air between us. She froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. "How can you even ask me that?" "Because you're acting like someone who's having an affair, removing your ring, hiding your marriage, getting defensive when I show up at your office. That's paranoid." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've created an alternate version of yourself at work. Single Mara. Available Mara. Unencumbered Mara." "You're being ridiculous." "Then prove it." "How?" "Start wearing your ring. Put a photo of us on your desk. Introduce me to your coworkers properly." "I'm not changing my professional image to satisfy your insecurities. And I'm not ignoring obvious red flags to preserve your secrets." We stared at each other across the kitchen island, 14 years of marriage reduced to this moment of mutual distrust. The woman I'd fallen in love with seemed to have been replaced by someone I barely recognized. "I'm going to bed," Mara said finally. "Good idea. Maybe tomorrow you can explain why Silas Venter felt comfortable enough to touch you like he owns you." She stopped in the doorway. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You know exactly what it means." She left without another word, her footsteps echoing up the stairs. I sat alone in the kitchen, surrounded by inspection reports and the growing certainty that my marriage was falling apart. But unlike the houses I inspected, I wasn't ready to recommend demolition. Not yet. First, I needed to understand the full extent of the damage, and that meant digging deeper than I'd ever dug before. I opened my laptop and started with the basics. Mara's social media accounts, her professional profiles, anything that might give me insight into the life she'd been living without me. What I found confirmed my worst suspicions and raised new questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. The next morning, Mara left for work without saying goodbye. I heard her car pull out of the driveway at 7:30, earlier than usual. She'd forgotten to take her wedding ring again, or maybe she'd left it deliberately. Either way, it sat on the bathroom counter like evidence of a crime. I had 3 inspections scheduled, but my mind wasn't on foundation cracks or electrical hazards. It was on the growing list of inconsistencies in my wife's behavior. So I did what I always do when faced with a problem. I started documenting everything. First stop was our shared Google Calendar. Mara had insisted we sync our schedules when she started the new job, claiming it would help us coordinate better. Now I realized it might have been her biggest mistake. I exported 18 months of data and started looking for patterns. Work dinners, client meetings, weekend conferences, team-building events. Mara's professional life looked incredibly demanding. Too demanding, maybe. Then I cross-referenced her calendar with her Instagram posts. Social media had never been my thing, but Mara documented everything. Dinners at trendy restaurants, weekend trips to Nashville, conference photos from hotels I'd never heard of. The correlation was perfect. Too perfect. Every client dinner at Romano's matched an Instagram post from Romano's. Every weekend conference in Nashville aligned with photos from Nashville hotels. Every team-building retreat corresponded to pictures of Mara looking relaxed and happy in locations I'd never visited. But here's what caught my attention: the timestamps. Mara's Instagram posts were often geotagged, showing exactly when and where they were taken. And in the background of several photos, I spotted the same face: Silas Ventar. Not just at work events, but at the Nashville conferences, at the weekend retreats, at the client dinners that apparently required the creative director's personal attention. I called Bob Hawkins. Hawk was an old friend who'd transitioned from police work to private investigation after taking early retirement. We'd stayed in touch over the years, and I knew he'd give me straight answers. "Reid Trenner," Hawk's gravelly voice came through the phone. "Been a while. What can I do for you?" "I need some information, and I need it to stay between us." "Personal or professional?" "Both." I explained the situation without going into too much detail. Hawk listened without interrupting, asking only a few clarifying questions. "You want me to follow her?" "I want you to verify some things, travel records, hotel stays, that sort of thing, just enough to confirm what I already suspect." "And what do you suspect?" "That my wife is living a double life." "Reid, you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes ignorance really is bliss." "I'm already down the road, Hawk. I just need to know how far it goes." "Give me 48 hours. While Hawk worked his contacts, I decided to do some investigating of my own. That afternoon, I drove to Mara's office building and parked across the street. I felt like a creep, but I needed to see something for myself. At 5:30, employees started streaming out of the building. I recognized several faces from yesterday's visit. Then I saw Mara and Silas emerge together, walking close, talking intently. They stopped at Silas's car, a black BMW parked in a reserved space. The conversation continued for several minutes. From my distance, I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told a story. Intimate gestures, prolonged eye contact, the kind of comfortable familiarity that develops over time. Then Silas leaned in and kissed her, not a friendly peck on the cheek, but a real kiss, the kind of kiss that left no doubt about their relationship. I sat in my truck, gripping the steering wheel, watching my wife of 14 years embrace another man in a parking lot. Part of me wanted to march over there and confront them both, but a larger part of me knew that emotional reactions rarely lead to good outcomes. Instead, I took photos. My phone camera wasn't great at that distance, but it captured enough. Mara and Silas together, clearly more than colleagues. Evidence I might need later. They separated after a few minutes. Silas got in his BMW and drove away. Mara walked to her own car, a Honda she'd bought last year, claiming she needed something more professional than my old pickup truck. I followed her, staying back several car lengths. Instead of heading home, she drove to an apartment complex I'd never seen before. She parked in front of a building and used a key to enter through the main door. This wasn't a friend's place or a work-related stop. This was somewhere she belonged. I waited 30 minutes, then drove home. Mara arrived 2 hours later with takeout from Thai Palace and an explanation about working late on a client presentation. "How was your day?" she asked, unpacking containers of pad thai and spring rolls. "Productive," I said. 3 inspections? All passed. How was yours?" "Busy. We're pitching a new account next week, so everyone's stressed." "Must be a big account." "Potentially. Could mean a lot of overtime if we land it." "Overtime at the office? Where else would it be?" I almost told her about the apartment, about seeing her with Silas, about the kiss in the parking lot, but something held me back. Maybe it was the casual way she lied to my face, or the realization that this conversation was probably one of dozens where she'd fed me fabricated stories about her day. "You seem tired," I said instead. "It's been a long week." "Maybe you should take some time off. We could take a weekend trip, just the two of us." "I can't right now. Too much going on at work." "When was the last time we took a trip together?" She paused, thinking. "I don't know. Last summer, maybe?" Last summer, she'd gone to 3 conferences. Nashville twice, Atlanta once. I'd stayed home each time, told that spouses weren't invited to professional events. "Maybe in a few months," she added. "When things settle down." Things would never settle down. I was beginning to understand that Mara's busy work schedule wasn't temporary stress. It was a carefully constructed excuse for living a separate life. That night, after Mara went to bed, I continued my investigation. I started with the apartment complex I'd followed her to. A quick online search revealed it was called Riverside Gardens, and they offered short-term furnished rentals. Their website had a tenant portal. On a hunch, I tried logging in with Mara's email address and her usual password. It worked. Mara Trenner had been leasing a 1-bedroom apartment at Riverside Gardens for 8 months. The lease was month to month, paid automatically from an account I didn't recognize. According to the portal, she'd listed herself as single and employed. 8 months. This wasn't a recent development or a moment of weakness. This was a sustained deception that required planning, financing, and constant maintenance. I printed out the lease agreement and rental history. Then I dug deeper into our financial records, looking for other accounts or expenses I might have missed. What I found made my stomach turn. Mara had opened a credit card I didn't know about. The statements, which I accessed through her email, showed a pattern of charges that told a story. Dinners for 2 at expensive restaurants, hotel rooms in Nashville and Atlanta, purchases from Victoria's Secret and other lingerie stores. But the charge that hit me hardest was from 3 months ago. $347 at Romano's restaurant, the same night she'd claimed to be working late on a presentation. I remembered that night because I'd offered to bring her dinner at the office. She'd declined, saying she was too busy to eat. Apparently, she'd been too busy eating dinner with someone else. The credit card statements went back 10 months, creating a timeline of deception that overlapped with her promotion to creative director. The job that had supposedly required longer hours and weekend work was actually providing cover for an affair. My phone buzzed with a text from Hawk. "Got some information. Can you meet tomorrow morning?" I texted back, "Yes. And Hawk? I think it's worse than I thought." "It usually is," came his reply. I spent the rest of the night going through every piece of evidence I'd gathered. The calendar discrepancies, the social media posts, the secret apartment, the hidden credit card. Each item by itself might have been explainable. Together, they painted a picture of systematic betrayal. But I still needed more. If I was going to confront Mara, I needed irrefutable proof. And if this was heading toward divorce, I needed documentation that would hold up in court. The next morning, Mara left for work with her usual excuse about an early meeting. I noticed she'd taken her wedding ring from the bathroom counter, but I'd bet money it would come off before she reached the office. I met Hawk at a diner downtown, away from anywhere Mara or her colleagues might see us. He slid a manila folder across the table. "Your wife's been busy," he said without preamble. The folder contained hotel receipts, travel records, and photographs. Lots of photographs. Mara and Silas at restaurants, entering hotels, walking hand in hand through Nashville's downtown district. "How long?" I asked. "Based on what I could verify? At least 10 months, probably longer." "The Nashville conferences?" "Real conferences, but she wasn't there for business. Silas Ventar was registered at the same hotels, same dates. They've been taking romantic getaways on company time." I studied the photos, recognizing outfits Mara had worn, restaurants she'd mentioned visiting for work. Every detail of her fabricated professional life was actually part of an elaborate affair. "There's more," Hawk said. "The apartment you found? Neighbors recognize both of them. They've been seen together regularly, usually Tuesday and Thursday nights." Tuesday and Thursday nights. Mara's late meetings with a difficult client. "Reid, I've got to ask. What are you planning to do with this information?" It was a fair question. I had enough evidence to confront Mara, enough to file for divorce, enough to destroy her professionally if I wanted to. But what I really wanted was something I couldn't get back. The 14 years of marriage I'd thought we'd shared. "I'm going to give her a chance to tell the truth," I said finally. "And if she doesn't? Then I'm going to stop playing nice." I spent the rest of the morning preparing for what might be the most important conversation of my marriage. The evidence was spread across our dining room table like pieces of a puzzle that finally made sense. Hotel receipts, apartment lease, credit card statements, photographs, calendar printouts. Everything needed to prove that my wife had been living a double life for almost a year. The hardest part wasn't gathering the evidence. It was accepting what it meant. Mara arrived home at 6:15, later than she'd promised, but earlier than her usual Tuesday schedule. She found me sitting at the dining room table, the evidence organized in neat piles. "What's all this?" she asked, setting down her purse. "Sit down, Mara." Something in my tone made her pause. She looked at the papers spread across the table, and I saw the exact moment she recognized what she was seeing. "Reid, I can explain." "Sit down." She sat across from me, her face pale but her posture still defiant. Even caught red-handed, she was going to try to control the narrative. "I know about Silas," I said simply. "You don't understand? I know about the apartment at Riverside Gardens. 8 months of lease payments from an account you thought I'd never find." Her mouth opened, then closed. "Ah, I know about the credit card, the hotel stays, the Nashville trips that had nothing to do with conferences." I slid the photographs across the table. Mara and Silas holding hands, kissing, entering hotels together. Her face crumpled as she saw them. "I know about Tuesday and Thursday nights when you told me you were working late, but you were actually playing house with your boyfriend." "Reid, please, I'm not finished." My voice was calm, controlled. "I know that every business dinner, every weekend conference, every late meeting for the past 10 months has been a lie. I know that you've been financing this affair with money from our joint accounts while pretending to work overtime." I leaned forward, looking directly into her eyes. "What I don't know is why you didn't just ask for a divorce." The silence stretched between us. Mara stared at the photographs, tears starting to form in her eyes. But I'd moved past the point where her tears would affect me. "How long have you known?" she asked finally. "I started suspecting when you stopped wearing your wedding ring. I knew for certain when I followed you to the apartment yesterday." "You followed me?" "I did a lot of things, Mara. I hired a private investigator. I tracked your spending. I verified your travel records. I documented everything." She looked up from the photographs. "Why?" "Because I'm not an idiot, and because I needed to know the truth before I decided what to do about it." "What are you going to do?" I pulled out a legal pad where I'd written down my terms. "You have 2 choices. You can tell me everything, and I mean everything, right now, or you can pack your things and move to your apartment permanently." "Reid, I love you." "No, you don't. You love the security I provide. You love having a husband at home while you play single woman at work. But you don't love me, because people who love each other don't do this." I gestured to the evidence covering the table. "So what's it going to be? The truth or the door?" Mara wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What do you want to know?" "Start with when it began." "Last February. Silas joined the company as creative director, and we started working together on the Morrison account." "The Morrison account that required so many dinner meetings?" "Yes." "And you decided to sleep with him because—" "It wasn't like that. It just happened." "Things like this don't just happen, Mara. You made choices. You chose to have dinner with him. You chose to get the apartment. You chose to lie to me every day for 10 months. She nodded, accepting the responsibility for the first time. "Why didn't you ask for a divorce?" "Because I wasn't sure what I wanted. I thought maybe it was just a phase, something I needed to get out of my system." "So you decided to have both, a husband and a boyfriend." "I know how it sounds. It sounds like you're selfish and entitled and completely indifferent to how your choices affect other people." The words hit her like a slap. Good. I was tired of protecting her feelings while she destroyed our marriage. "Are you in love with him?" "I don't know." "That's not an answer. I care about him, but I care about you too. Caring about me would have meant not sleeping with your coworker for 10 months. I pulled out another document, divorce papers I'd had prepared that afternoon. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign from your job. You're going to end things with Silas completely. You're going to move out of the apartment and close the secret credit card. And we're going to try marriage counseling. And if I don't, then I file these papers tomorrow and I make sure everyone at your company knows exactly why your marriage ended." It was a bluff, mostly. I had no intention of destroying her professionally unless she forced my hand, but she didn't know that. "Reid, please. I made a mistake. You made 100 mistakes. Every lie, every hotel stay, every time you took off your wedding ring was a separate choice to betray our marriage. I can fix this." "Maybe. But first, you need to understand that the woman who's been lying to me for 10 months doesn't get to negotiate terms. She gets to accept consequences." I stood up, gathering the evidence into neat piles. "You have until Friday to decide. Counseling and complete transparency, or divorce and public humiliation, your choice. Mara sat at the table, staring at the divorce papers. Where am I supposed to go tonight? I assume your boyfriend has a couch. Reid, I'm done for tonight, Mara. I need time to process the fact that my wife has been lying to my face every day for almost a year. I left her sitting at the dining room table and went upstairs to the spare bedroom. Through the thin walls, I could hear her making phone calls. To Silas, probably. Maybe to her best friend Jade, who I now suspected had been covering for her all along. I didn't care who she called or what she told them. The truth was finally out, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe clearly. But I also knew this was just the beginning. Mara wasn't going to accept responsibility quietly, and Silas wasn't going to disappear without a fight. If I wanted to save my marriage, and I wasn't sure I did, I was going to have to be smarter and more ruthless than both of them. The next morning, Mara was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note saying she was staying at Jade's house and needed time to think. The note also said she loved me and wanted to work things out. I crumpled it up and threw it away. At 10 o'clock, my phone rang. Unknown number. Reid Trenner? Yes. This is Silas Ventar. I think we should talk. The audacity was breathtaking. The man who'd been sleeping with my wife for 10 months wanted to have a conversation. I don't think we have anything to discuss, I said. Actually, we do. Mara told me about last night. About your ultimatum. And I think you should know that she's not going to choose you. I felt a surge of anger, but I kept my voice level. Is that right? She's been unhappy for years, Reid. What we have is real. What you two have is just habit. You know what, Silas? You're probably right. Mara probably will choose you, but here's what you don't understand. What's that? I don't care anymore. She made her choice 10 months ago when she decided to lie to both of us. You're welcome to her. I hung up before he could respond, but even as I said the words, I knew they weren't entirely true. I did care. I cared enough to be furious, enough to want revenge, enough to make sure that both Mara and Silas understood the consequences of their choices. The question was, how far was I willing to go? Mara didn't come home that night or the next. On Thursday morning, I received a text message. Staying at Jade's, need more time to think, please don't contact me. I texted back, you have until Friday at 6 p.m. to decide. After that, the offer expires. She didn't respond. I spent Thursday morning doing something I should have done months ago. I called Jade Fallon directly. Jade had been Mara's best friend since college. If anyone knew the full scope of Mara's deception, it would be her. And if Jade had been covering for Mara, I wanted to hear her try to explain it. Reid? Jade's voice was carefully neutral when she answered. How are you? I've been better. I assume Mara told you what happened. She said you two are having some problems. Problems? I almost laughed. Is that what she called it? Reid, I know you're hurt. Jade, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want a direct answer. How long have you known about Silas? The pause lasted exactly 4 seconds, long enough to confirm what I'd suspected. I don't know what you mean. You don't know what I mean. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Mara's Instagram posts. What about the Nashville trip in March? The one where Mara posted photos from the Hermitage Hotel, and you commented, looks amazing. Wish I was there. Except Mara told me she was at a conference at the convention center downtown. Another pause. Or the dinner at Romano's in April. The one where Mara posted a photo of 2 wine glasses and you commented, romantic, lucky girl. Even though she told me she was working late that night. Reid. How about the apartment, Jade? Did you help her pick out furniture for her love nest? You're being unfair. I'm being unfair? I'm not the one who's been lying for 10 months. Mara's my best friend. I can't betray her confidence. But you can help her betray her marriage. It's not that simple. Actually, it is that simple. You knew my wife was having an affair and you helped her hide it. That makes you complicit. Reid, please. Mara's confused right now. She doesn't know what she wants. She wants to keep both her husband and her boyfriend. She wants to have her cake and eat it too, and you've been helping her do it. She cares about you. No, she doesn't. People who care about each other don't lie for 10 months straight. They don't maintain secret apartments and hidden credit cards. They don't erase their spouse from their professional life. I could hear Jade breathing on the other end of the line, probably trying to figure out how to spin this conversation in Mara's favor. Is she there right now? I asked. No, she's at work. At work, where she's probably explaining to Silas how her unreasonable husband is making demands. Reid, if you could just give her some space. I gave her 10 months of space, Jade. I gave her space to lie, to cheat, to build an entire alternate life. How much more space does she need? She's trying to figure things out. No, she's trying to find a way to keep both relationships going, and you're helping her do it because you think that's what friendship means. I took a breath, trying to control my anger. Here's what's going to happen, Jade. Mara has until tomorrow at 6 to make a decision, counseling and complete honesty or divorce. If she chooses divorce, I'm going to make sure everyone knows why, including her parents. You wouldn't. Try me. I hung up before she could respond. The conversation with Jade confirmed what I'd already suspected. Mara's support system was actively working against our marriage. Her best friend wasn't encouraging her to be honest or to consider the impact of her choices. She was helping Mara maintain the deception. That afternoon, I made a decision that would have seemed unthinkable a week earlier. I drove to Mara's office building and waited in the parking lot. At 5:30, I watched Mara and Silas emerge together, just like before. But this time, instead of hiding across the street, I got out of my truck and walked directly toward them. Mara! She froze when she saw me. Silas stepped slightly in front of her, as if he needed to protect her. Reid, Mara said, what are you doing here? I wanted to see if you'd made a decision. I told you I needed more time. And I told you that you had until Friday. That's tomorrow. Silas cleared his throat. Maybe you should give her some space. I looked at him directly for the first time since our phone conversation. Maybe you should stay out of conversations between married people. Mara and I are together now, he said. That makes this my business. Actually, it doesn't. Mara is still married to me, legally, financially, and according to the vows she took 14 years ago. You're just the guy she's been sleeping with. Reid, please, Mara said. Don't make a scene. I'm not making a scene. I'm having a conversation with my wife about the future of our marriage. Other employees were starting to notice us. I could see them slowing down as they passed, trying to overhear without being obvious about it. So, what's it going to be, Mara? Are you coming home to work on our marriage, or are you choosing him? She looked back and forth between Silas and me, clearly uncomfortable with the public nature of the confrontation. I can't make this decision under pressure. You've had 10 months to make this decision. The only thing that's changed is that you got caught. That's not fair. What's not fair is lying to your husband for 10 months while you play house with your boyfriend. Several coworkers had stopped walking entirely and were now openly watching our conversation. I could see recognition on some of their faces. They remembered me from my visit with the roses. I think we should continue this conversation privately, Silas said. I think you should shut up, I replied. This is between my wife and me. Reid, Mara's voice was sharp. You're embarrassing me. I'm embarrassing you? You've been having an affair with your coworker for 10 months, and I'm the one who's embarrassing. The parking lot had gotten very quiet. At least a dozen people were now watching us, including some I recognized from my office visit. You want to know what's embarrassing, Mara? What's embarrassing is finding out that your wife's coworkers didn't even know she was married. What's embarrassing is discovering that she's been financing her affair with money from your joint accounts. Reid, stop. What's embarrassing is realizing that every time she said she was working late, she was actually in bed with this guy. That's enough. Silas stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. You're right, I said. It is enough. It's been enough for 10 months. I turned back to Mara. 6 o'clock tomorrow, Mara. Make your choice. I walked back to my truck, leaving them standing in the parking lot with an audience of their coworkers. In my rearview mirror, I could see people approaching them, probably asking questions, wanting to know what they'd just witnessed. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I'd taken control of the situation. But I also knew that public confrontations have consequences. By tomorrow, everyone at Mara's company would know about the affair. HR would probably get involved. Silas's professional reputation would be damaged. Good. Actions should have consequences. That evening, my phone rang constantly. Mara called 6 times, but I didn't answer. Jade called twice. Even Silas called once, though I couldn't imagine what he thought he had to say. Finally, around 9 o'clock, I answered one of Mara's calls. Reid, we need to talk. We tried talking. You chose to lie instead. I'm ready to be honest now. Are you? Or are you just ready to tell me whatever you think I want to hear? I want to save our marriage. Why? The question seemed to catch her off guard. Because I love you. No, Mara. You love the idea of not losing everything. You love having options, but you don't love me because people who love each other don't do what you've done. That's not true. Prove it. How? Come home. Right now. End things with Silas completely. Give up the apartment. close the credit card, and agree to complete transparency going forward. Reid, I can't just... Then you've made your choice. I hung up and turned off my phone. The next morning was Friday. Mara had until 6 o'clock to decide whether she wanted to save our marriage or end it, but as I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and reviewing the evidence I'd gathered, I realized something important. I wasn't sure I wanted her to choose me anymore. The woman who could lie for 10 months, who could maintain a secret apartment and hidden credit cards, who could erase her husband from her professional life, that woman wasn't someone I wanted to be married to. Maybe it was time to stop trying to save something that was already broken beyond repair. Maybe it was time to let Mara live with the consequences of her choices. And maybe it was time for me to start thinking about what I wanted instead of what I was willing to accept. At 6 o'clock that evening, my phone buzzed with a text message from Mara. I need more time. This is too big a decision to rush. I typed back, time's up. Divorce papers will be filed Monday morning. Then I poured myself a drink and started planning the next phase of my life. A life without Mara, without lies, without constantly wondering if the person I loved was telling me the truth. It was going to be a better life. I was sure of it. A Monday morning came faster than I expected. I sat in my attorney's office at 9 o'clock sharp. Divorce papers spread across the mahogany desk between us. You're sure about this, Reid? David Martinez had been my attorney for years, handling everything from house purchases to contract disputes. He'd never handled a divorce for me before. I'm sure. Your wife hasn't responded to your ultimatum? She asked for more time. After 10 months of lying, she wants more time to decide if she wants to stay married. David nodded, reviewing the documents. Based on the evidence you've provided, this should be straightforward. Adultery is still grounds for fault-based divorce in this state. What about the financial aspects? The secret apartment, hidden credit card, and documented affair expenses will work in your favor. The court doesn't look kindly on marital assets being used to finance extramarital relationships. I signed the papers, officially ending my 14-year marriage. It felt surreal, reducing years of shared history to legal documents and property divisions. How long before she served? This afternoon. Are you prepared for her reaction? I thought about the question. Was anyone ever prepared for their spouse's reaction to divorce papers? She made her choice when she decided to have an affair. Now she gets to live with the consequences. That afternoon, I was inspecting a house in the suburbs when my phone started ringing. First Mara, then Jade, then a number I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. The voicemails told a story of escalating panic. Mara's first message, Reid, please call me. We need to talk about this. Jade's message, Reid, Mara is devastated. Can't you work this out? Mara's second message, Reid, I'm ready to do whatever you want. Please don't do this. Unknown number. Mr. Trenner, this is Silas Ventar. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I deleted all the messages without responding. That evening, Mara showed up at the house. I watched through the window as she tried her key, discovered that I'd changed the locks, and started pounding on the front door. Reid, open the door. We need to talk. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. You were served the papers? Yes, and this is crazy. We can work this out. We could have worked it out 10 months ago before you started sleeping with Silas. Reid, please. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. You made hundreds of mistakes, Mara. Every lie was a choice. Every hotel stay was a choice. Every time you took off your wedding ring was a choice to prioritize your affair over our marriage. I choose you now. Now that you've been caught. Now that your coworkers know about the affair. Now that Silas is probably distancing himself to protect his own reputation. Her face crumpled. How can you be so cold? Cold? I gave you a chance to tell the truth. I offered counseling and a fresh start. You chose to ask for more time instead. I was scared. You should have been scared 10 months ago before you decided to cheat on your husband. I started to close the door, but she put her hand against it. Reid, I love you. I've always loved you. No, Mara, you love security. You love having options. You love not having to face consequences for your actions. But you don't love me. That's not true. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 10 months lying to my face. If you loved me, you wouldn't have erased me from your professional life. If you loved me, you would have asked for a divorce instead of having an affair. I was confused. You were selfish. There's a difference. This time, I did close the door. Mara stood on the porch for another 10 minutes, alternately knocking and pleading, before finally leaving. The next few days brought a parade of phone calls, text messages, and unexpected visitors. Jade showed up twice, trying to convince me to give Mara another chance. Mara's mother called, asking what had happened to our perfect marriage. Even Silas sent a text message suggesting we handle this like adults. I ignored them all, but I couldn't ignore what was happening at Mara's workplace. Through Hawk's contacts, I learned that HR had launched an investigation into the relationship between Mara and Silas. Office relationships weren't explicitly forbidden, but undisclosed relationships between supervisors and subordinates violated company policy. More importantly, the public confrontation in the parking lot had become office gossip. Everyone knew about the affair now, and Mara's carefully constructed professional image was crumbling. According to Hawk's source, Mara had taken a leave of absence to deal with personal issues. Silas was still working, but he'd been moved to a different department pending the HR investigation. "Your wife's not handling this well," Hawk told me over coffee. "My contact says she's been calling in sick, missing meetings, generally falling apart." "That's unfortunate." "Is it? Reid, I've known you for 15 years. You're not usually this ruthless." "I'm not being ruthless, I'm being realistic. Mara had 10 months to consider the consequences of her actions. Now she's experiencing them." "And Silas? What about him? Word is he's trying to distance himself from the whole situation, claiming it was just a casual thing, nothing serious." "That didn't surprise me. Men like Silas were happy to pursue married women until the situation became complicated. Then they disappeared, leaving the women to deal with the fallout alone." Mara's about to learn an important lesson about the kind of man she chose over her husband. 2 weeks after filing for divorce, I received an unexpected phone call from Mara's boss, Patricia Wells. "Mr. Trenner? This is Patricia Wells from Trenner Marketing Solutions. I hope you don't mind me calling." "What can I do for you, Ms. Wells?" "I wanted to discuss the situation with Mara. As you know, she's taken a leave of absence." "I wasn't aware of that, but it's not really my concern anymore." "Mr. Trenner, I'll be direct. The situation between Mara and Silas has created problems for our company. We're trying to determine the best way forward." "I'm not sure how I can help with that." "Mara has indicated that she'd like to return to work, but the circumstances make that complicated." I understood what she was really saying. Mara's affair with a coworker had created a hostile work environment, damaged team dynamics, and potentially exposed the company to liability issues. "Ms. Wells, I appreciate you calling, but my marriage to Mara is over. Whatever decisions you make about her employment are between you and her." "I understand. I just wanted to make sure you knew that we don't condone this type of behavior." After I hung up, I realized that Mara's professional life was falling apart just as completely as her personal life. The affair that was supposed to advance her career was actually destroying it. Actions have consequences. Sometimes those consequences are more severe than people expect. That afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. "This is Silas. We should meet. There are things you don't understand about the situation." I stared at the message for several minutes before responding. "I understand everything I need to understand." "Mara told me you think this was all my idea. That's not true. I don't care whose idea it was. She pursued me, not the other way around." And there it was. Silas was throwing Mara under the bus, trying to salvage his own reputation by portraying her as the aggressor in their affair. I typed back, "You're both adults who made choices. Own your choices." "I'm trying to, but Mara won't let this go. She keeps calling, showing up at my apartment. It's becoming a problem." So Mara was now pursuing a man who was actively trying to distance himself from her. The fantasy relationship she'd destroyed her marriage for was evaporating, leaving her with nothing. "That's between you and her?" "Reid, I know you hate me, but Mara needs help. Professional help. She's not handling this well." Then suggest she get counseling. "I think she might hurt herself." That stopped me. Despite everything Mara had done, I didn't want her to be in actual danger. "What do you mean?" "She's drinking heavily, not eating, calling me at all hours. Yesterday she showed up at my office demanding to know why I won't return her calls." "Have you told her it's over between you?" "Multiple times, but she keeps saying that if you would just drop the divorce, everything could go back to normal." Mara was living in a fantasy world where she could somehow undo the consequences of her choices. She thought that if I forgave her, Silas would take her back, her job would be restored, and her life would return to the way it was before she got caught. That's not going to happen. "I know that. You know that. But Mara doesn't seem to understand." "Then make it clear to her." "I've tried. She won't listen." I thought about the situation. Mara was spiraling, clinging to a relationship that no longer existed, refusing to accept reality. Part of me felt sorry for her, but a larger part of me recognized that this was exactly what she'd earned through her choices. "Silas, you created this situation when you decided to have an affair with a married woman. Figure out how to handle it." I blocked his number and went back to planning my new life. The divorce would be final in 60 days. I'd already started looking at smaller houses, places that would be mine alone, free from the memories of a marriage that had been built on lies. For the first time in months, I felt optimistic about the future. Mara had made her choice when she decided to prioritize her affair over our marriage. Now she was learning that choices have consequences, and some consequences can't be undone. I was learning something too, that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is stop trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. The story was ending exactly as it should have. Not with reconciliation or forgiveness, but with accountability, and I was finally at peace with that.